Are reset?
Yes.
Okay. Normally, I think I've been used to hearing some prompt saying recording started or something.
Right. No, I'm doing this on my Windows machine alone. I did check it out earlier. It does pull Discord.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Awesome. So there was a bunch of questions. Again, for folks who are joining this for the first time, we've been trying to do this, I guess, once every month. This is not, a one-way street where some of us give answers. It is a forum where everyone can participate, provide your opinions, your answers, your suggestions. So it's meant to be like a discussion forum as opposed to just being like a one-way kind of street, right? So I'm making sure that I set that context very clearly. So if anyone has a different point of view, or a slightly different perspective to the answer, please jump in and state that as well. So there's about 7 questions here already. I think that actually you'd collated. Maybe we can start. Are these ranked and in order of priority we should address them in, or should we go through um, and
Probably a
maybe
good
talk about
idea
that?
would be to ask if the people who wrote the questions are here so that, we address whoever's here first, maybe. That's just an opinion.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought this is all from Excel, but yeah, that's a good way to start as well.
Sorry. Yes, this was mostly me. Though I did see a few of these questions come in from time to time from other people as well, and I think a few of the others did say they liked some of those questions, but it was just one day of me thinking about those questions. So they were literally off the top of my head. Um,
Oh, maybe we can ask people who are here if they have any questions so that we can do this more live, or we can use the
I think
canned
so.
questions. Yeah. So the folks who are here, you can just unmute yourself and probably ask a question. Well, TPMs can't be shy.
I think they're just, you know, taking that 1 minute to think and give you a great question. That's what's happening.
Uh, so let me start with something very naive question that I have. I'm pretty new, so I don't know the protocols. Please excuse me if this is something not very relevant. So I'm just wondering. I
There's
started my
there's
search
only
for.
there's o- there's only one protocol that there are no protocols, so all questions are welcome.
Okay, so my question is I mean, how do we reach out to the recruiters for the FANG companies? I know Amazon is easier to get an interview, but other companies, how do we know? Like, how do we reach out to the recruiters? Is there any referrals? I mean, I know like there's a referrals tab here, channel here, but what's the best way to reach out to the recruiters and get an interview?
Mario, do you want to start? Because I think
Yeah,
you've been
yeah.
thinking about some others, right?
Yeah, so one of the best ways, in my opinion, easy way is there's a LinkedIn group called LinkedIn TPMs, whatever. I'll post. I think it's pinned on the referral channel, maybe. If not, I'll pin it soon on the channel. So I post jobs there every day, and these are hiring managers who are looking to hire TPM, and generally it's from Amazon, Microsoft, any one of the big companies, right? Somebody in my network of 14,000 people is looking for a TPM, and I post that into the TPM LinkedIn group. So you can actually directly reach out to the hiring manager and ask him or her if they would be interested in your resume or if they'd be interested in somebody like you. That's one. Another good way is to find like your distant contacts and friends, your college mates, schoolmates, whatever you can find who are already in one of these companies who can actually do a proper referral, right? Another way I've seen that works really well is this Discord channel, of course, is really good. The other way is to just post on Blind and see if somebody bites, right? So those are the three things which are on top of my mind when it comes to finding referrals.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
And one the other point to add also is like Mary was saying, reaching out to hiring managers directly usually gives you a good response, right? Because everyone's struggling to hire right now, given that the competition is so high, everyone's upping their compensation bands. All of this is happening, and talent, the war for talent is like really real. So. Any hiring managers, will they solve if they get a ping on LinkedIn and if they think that they have a fairly decent shot at making this successful, they'll definitely respond to you and maybe try and take it from there. If you don't get to through that channel, the other one is obviously like finding somebody who can refer you. But the challenge with that one I've seen sometimes is you need them to be invested in you, right? Like sometimes what happens is you put a referral and you'll get an automatic rejection, and this could be because somebody who's sitting at the forefront of the resume screening process may not completely understand that template or that sample. And I've had this numerous times where I would get an automatic rejection for someone I referred, and I'd go talk to the recruiter or the hiring manager, and they would say, "Oh, that must have been a mistake. Let me go look at it again." So you need somebody who can actually go bat for you a little bit, push the case with the HM or the recruiter a little bit, right? So also try and find people who you know from the past and have worked with you, or you want to call it with, like Mario was saying. Sometimes blind referrals, pun may be intended, may not often serve the purpose because they're not invested in like finding you the right place or like going and fighting the case for you. So that may be a way to guarantee or at least get some more quality referrals through.
Yeah, I think that's a great insight. In fact, I applied through LinkedIn multiple times, but I never got a call from Google or
Yeah.
other major companies.
So this is my personal opinion that LinkedIn is probably the worst way to apply for jobs.
Yeah.
Right. It's if you want to see who's hiring, probably you can find it on LinkedIn. But applying through LinkedIn and getting a call is, I would say, is close to impossible unless you're already with a FANG company, and then you already have the network and resources there. So don't apply through LinkedIn. The other way probably is to reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn and ask them if they are hiring, right? So if you have a connection with the Amazon recruiter or a Microsoft recruiter or Google recruiter, you can always like reach out to them and say, hey, do you or any one of your colleagues know a team which is hiring TPMs?
Oh, okay, okay. But the question is, again, it's a very basic question. How do I know? I mean, is it like through the searching in the LinkedIn, I can find out someone is a Microsoft recruiter? Is that the easiest way, or is
The
it any other
easiest
better
way
way?
is to look on LinkedIn. You just go and see recruiter, and then you sort by company. You say recruiter at Amazon, and you just go ahead and add like a bunch of recruiters, like to add 30 recruiters today, like 2 weeks later, add 30 recruiters in different companies. And then some people are not going to accept your invite, but a lot would because they need, audience.
Okay, got it.
And I also posted the LinkedIn group onto the referrals channel, so you have the link there.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. I think these are very, very valuable inputs, which I was missing all these days until I joined this Discord group.
Yeah, and adding to that, suppose when you are reaching out to your hiring manager, don't just do a cold message. Make sure you are
Any other
highlighting.
questions, folks?
Oh,
We not
Mario, I think you may have maybe speaking over someone else that was chiming in. I'm not sure if you were not able to hear that person.
Are you able to hear me?
we can.
I can, yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. No, no, I was just saying, suppose when you are reaching out to a hiring manager, don't just do a cold message. Make sure you are highlighting a couple of critical projects that you have delivered and what makes you to be unique than other candidates. Because on a given day, hiring managers might have received multiple messages. Uh, so make sure what you are bringing to the table and what you will bring to the organization. So highlighting those will stand first, and you might get an immediate response from hiring manager.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, that's a great insight. Thank you.
Just one more thing to add for that. There's a really great write-up that Henry Stanley did. I just put a link into the general channel about LinkedIn networking. There's some stories in there from others as well too about how to use LinkedIn for job hunting as well.
Cool. I guess maybe we can move on from this topic unless someone has a very relevant question on referrals.
It's a slightly related question, and this might be one of my questions that's already on there. So good recruiters, right? Is there a way, or is there no way for us to actually find good recruiters? And I have a very anecdotal evidence that the recruiter that I had didn't know what they were doing. It felt like it because they told me stuff, and then their supervisor or somebody actually responded saying, "Hey, no, that's not true. Wait for the response." It was a negatory response at the end, but not really like that. Um, anyway, the question is, good recruiter. Is there a way to figure that out, or is it just luck of the draw, basically?
Generally,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
generally it is luck of the draw, but then I do know a couple of TPMs who've been in the industry for a long time who do like some recruiters, like that particular recruiter. I've heard stories where a particular recruiter gives you all the information. They tell you the bands, they tell you exactly, you have like three teams you need to choose from. They'll tell you exactly, like, hey, this team, this is the challenge they're trying to solve, or this is the problem with that team, or the leadership here is a little shaky, we've had like three orgs in that particular team there. And but that's very rare to come across, and that's just your personal network. You need to have a network where you trust somebody and that individual's trusting you back. Um, but it's very hard to like get a list like of, say, okay, give me like three Facebook recruiters who not guide me the wrong way. I don't think that's easy to find unless you get it through some personal contact you might have.
Do you
Yeah,
think?
totally echo that. I think good recruiters are definitely hard to find. As a hiring manager, some of the recruiters, I used to work with their FP, were some of the best I've seen in the industry, like amazing folks who would champion for the candidate. I think I talked about this with someone. There was a profile that came from that had predominantly been in consulting and with Accenture or somewhere. And your first instinct as a hiring manager in a product company is to say, no, they're probably not going to be successful. But this individual was like, hey, I talked to this person. They have a very much a product thinking kind of mindset. Why don't you at least have a conversation, right? So those are ideally the recruiters you want on your side, people who really talk to you, understood your background, and can push for you with the hiring manager. And so we took a chance on that person, and like he joined the org, and he was one of the top performers there. So absolutely needs somebody to like go champion for that, but also extremely hard to find. And unfortunately, there's like no good way of saying who's good or who's bad, right? So one thing that I think I was saying in the general channel, so a couple of folks who are friends, who are good friends, who are recruiters and sourcers, they've agreed to come to one of these sessions the next time we do it. So what I'll try and do is crowdsource a bunch of questions for like recruiting and sourcing, and see if there are best practices that all of us as candidates can follow along. So the next time we do this in Jan or something, we'll try and bring a couple of people over. But obviously, don't gang up on them and try and say that your whole function is messed up. But try and approach this on a constructive basis and ask good questions. Obviously, we'll try and moderate this as well. But yeah, looking forward to setting that up for next month.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, no, I don't mean to, you know, throw shade or anything. It was just one experience of mine, and I will be perfectly honest. I was very dumb going into my Amazon interview, and I did not know what a big deal it was. But also just could have you know, been helped a little bit more. Side note, is there a sense for us, you know, as a Discord community to actually create a group of recruiters that we like? I know Mario's already got a list of Facebook recruiters, but um, I don't know. Is that even a good idea so that people here can actually? And I'm not sure if that's a good idea. I mean, if I was a recruiter, would I just like to be put in front of like 1,000 people as somebody who's so yeah, just something to think about, I guess.
So let me maybe try and walk through the other side of how the hiring or the pipelining typically works, right, at larger organizations. So most of these places have seats with LinkedIn talent recruiting solutions. And then, what people normally do is they go through that entire list of people that come up with our search criteria. So we usually have a good search string in place that look at TPMs, program managers, PMTs, all of those kind of search strings. We look at location, we look at years of experience, we look at the type of companies you are in, and then they typically create a LinkedIn project based on all of these profiles. And then every week or two, the hiring manager and the sourcer, we kind of go through and mark off these people saying, hey, this is a potentially good person, this is maybe not a good fit, and they kind of fine tune their own search process based on our signals, right? We tell them why we rejected someone versus why we did not. And so they fine tune and get us the next really good set of results on LinkedIn. So the LinkedIn projects are usually how we've done a lot of the sourcing initially. That's one way of doing it. The second way, how we typically build pipelines, is we do referral jams, right? So every month or so, we invite a section of people who we work closely with, so engineers, product managers, marketing folks, to refer TPMs who they worked with in the past and have done exceptionally good work. So we'll look at all of this and then also look at the inbound, like organic inbound applications that come through. But usually the first two are where we spend a lot more time on, because organic applications are just the hundreds of thousands, right? It's very hard to really find like the I mean the ROI for sifting through hundreds of thousands of profiles are pretty low. So we look at all of this and then we start to build a pipeline of here is all the 10, here's the list of 10 people that we need to talk to. And then from there, we kind of start building out the next set of stages. The really good thing about places like this is we clearly know from a conversion standpoint how many people you need to add at the top of the pipeline. So I think for FB, it was some 125 to 1 or something, offer accepted and button seat is what we used to call it. So every 125 odd people we talked to, you would have one offer accept. So if you had 5 roles open, you kind of knew that you had a pipeline 500 people and start talking to them right away, right? The second thing is also looking at all the different roles. Maybe other recruiters are pipelining as well, looking at everyone who's coming through our process, and then if we are interested in a profile, maybe call second dibs on them, right? So if the first team finds someone else, they fill the role, then if this person converts, then we our role could be a good fit, and we want second dibs and all that. So those are things we used to do too. So optimizing for these types of pipelining activities is what we should really think about, right? So how can we kind of get in front of these people? So definitely referrals is a good way. Keeping your LinkedIn profile really clean and neat, and really calling out the impact you've had is another good way. Because I've seen a lot of profiles which will just have your title and your company, and I have no clue as to like whether you worked on payments or hardware or AI/ML or something else. So keep it clean and fresh, and make sure that that impact is really called out. And so those are ways you can continuously fine tune how you show up in all of these pipelining processes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm still trying to figure out, how to navigate between the different sections on Discord and trying to see if I can have the list of questions open while responding, but it's being a little difficult.
I just put it in
Um,
general, if you'd like to go there, but
okay.
I had the same thing, so I just
Yeah. I wish it opened up in a pane on the side of this. Anyway, so should we look at some of the other questions here, or if there are people who have other pressing things, like they have an interview on Monday or something and want to ask, definitely feel free to go.
So I have one question. Can you hear me? This is
Yes.
Raj. So
Yeah.
on your point regarding folks with consulting background, right? Like I know, like in the chat you mentioned only very limited companies accept them, like Amazon, for
Yeah.
example, right?
Yeah.
Is there no way that the consulting folks can get into Facebook or Google without having an intermediate product background?
Um, yeah, not to mince words, definitely hard, right? Unless like you are in a very specific domain, for example, right? So one example I can give you is privacy or or compliance, or are you working on something AI ML related, or you've done something that is, for example, FB's most important focus right now, which is AR, VR, and all that. So if you have those kinds of domain experiences and you've done some cool stuff, then yes, you can definitely have a shot. But it's hard to get through that first level of filtering, right? And so that's where you need somebody to kind of be a sponsor. Could be somebody who's working there, somebody in this Discord channel who can actually take the extra effort of not just putting you through the system, but maybe even like talking to you and understanding you, and maybe giving a little bit more of a support while your profile kind of goes through the system. Similar to like what I think Jason was suggesting, like he's open to referring you at FP, but once you've had the chat and he understands your profile and all that. So I think that's a good way to maybe do a little bit more. So focus on what shines in your resume, right? How can you clearly show the impact that you landed? Focus on data, metrics, goals. Maybe you have a blog post that you published, or you have a patent pending something on something you worked on. Those are all things that will stand out. But it's also like if you've worked on some of these really interesting niche kind of domains, make sure to highlight those as well. Otherwise, with a very generic profile, usually pretty hard.
Got it. But when you say it's hard, right? Is it hard to get into the phone screen round itself, or it's hard even if one goes through the phone screen and then the virtual loop to clear the process? Which one are you specifically mentioning?
Getting the phone screen. I think once you get through the phone screen, and even before, like the recruiter reaching out to you, right? That's the hardest part, right? At some point, I think if I remember, this is maybe 2018 or so, and recruiting internally had published a stat which said FB at that point got 400,000 applications and they hired 10,000 people, right? So you can imagine the conversion ratio there. So it's pretty hard to get that first call. That's where the most important challenge or most significant hurdle would be. I think once you get to the phone screen, you can probably have a good conversation and like maybe impress upon them the experiences and all of that. It's getting that first call that's usually the hardest, in my opinion, at least.
Got it. Got it. Okay, makes sense. So thanks for your inputs.
Yeah. Folks, again, feel free to jump in and add. I think all of us have, bring in a lot of collective experiences. So please feel free to jump in and share your POV as well.
Yeah. So I have some consulting background. The way I got a breakthrough these companies is, highlight your strengths. Okay. There's some industries or some companies they're doing the heavy work in one area. If you have a skill set in that area, highlight in LinkedIn and a resume, that will get attention of the hiring manager as well as recruiter. Okay, that's how I got into the FANG company.
Cool.
I have my question is, in the FANG companies, I know each specific company focusing on specific area. Can we collect information about, hey, this company is heavily investing infrastructure, for example, like, so which organization they're investing money or investing the resources? If we have that information, that will be certainly help us to make a decision whether should apply there or not, right? Instead of just throwing the stone in the dark. If you know a specific company heavily investing in infrastructure and I'm an infrastructure expert, I can certainly improve my chances. So is there any information out there or we can collect that information. I work for Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to provide some insights. What are the roadmap in the next 2 months or 2 years? Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean, without even sharing some of the, I'm guessing some of this might even be like confidential, and sometimes it could land you in trouble. But even without doing that, I think it's a little easy to. I mean, the information is out there. I think the easiest way for us to kind of get there is just to kind of take a look at the careers website of each of these places. And so it'll clearly call out TPM privacy, TPM compliance, TPM, I don't know, identity, and then you can kind of get sense that, well, looks like they have, privacy and compliance as a biggest thing. Another example I can give you, a lot of my ex-friends, they come from consulting backgrounds in healthcare, and they kind of didn't are kind of figuring out like, where do I go from here? And I was telling them Amazon's making a huge foray into healthcare. Like, you go to their website, they're making a lot of interesting moves there. Like, why don't you try through that, right? So the info is already kind of out there. I think it may take a little bit of effort to kind of go through the website, the career websites, and see where are you hiring. It may also, I think LinkedIn even maybe provide some insights there, right? So when you go visit a company profile on LinkedIn, it'll probably tell you so many people hired from X company, or so many people from your previous company are working here, or something, stuff like that. So that information is not like consolidated and centrally available, but it may be something that's like sporadically available. It may actually also be a good one for Mario to maybe think about, and maybe build it into whatever he's trying to do. Mario, you probably have a good POV here.
Yeah, no, I've struggled a little bit with this, but then I think it's a very easy answer. The way I've dealt with this is just look at the jobs, right? If you think about Amazon, if you think about any of the big companies, you can just go to the career site and don't even look for TPM jobs. Just browse through all the recent jobs. You will see, like, at one point, I think everybody noticed that, oh, Alexa is hiring, right? Within Amazon, Alexa is hiring, AWS is hiring. Those are the two primary areas where you're having 80-90% of the hiring happen. And Google public cloud hiring a lot of people right now. You'll also see these trends. So as I think, just by looking at the job sites, you can find that out. And the thing is that you can't this information is so dynamic and keeps changing month over month that you can't have a static list, right? So producing something which is a one-time effort is not going to be very fruitful.
Yeah. Yeah, Mario, one point though I'd probably add as a clarifying thing would be, some of these are like multi-year bets, right? So for example, the AR VR thing with Meta is definitely a 3, 5, maybe 10-year kind of thing. So definitely, if you have AR VR type of experience, that will have a longer trajectory, and I guess the returns are probably guaranteed if you can show the expertise there. So that's one point. The other thing is, I don't know if people here know about this website called Candor, Candor, and this it's run by a lady called Nia, I think. So she and that website publishes, I think, weekly insights about who's doing what. And so they use, I think, LinkedIn data insights and all of that. They look at who's being hired into leadership roles, who's leaving the company from these kind of domains. Where are most of the engineering type of hiring happening, and then they provide you like good amount of insights. Right now, I think it's like, once you sign up and subscribe, it's free. You'll get an email blast, and there's a lot of good and interesting information there, including analyzing these companies. Annual reports or quarterly reports, as well as like projections of what they think in the next few quarters are going to look like. So that I've seen is a good source of information. It can be a lot more meaningful and better, but at least they have started to do some of that in their newsletters.
Can you please repeat the website?
Yeah, I can't find
Uh,
it.
it's called. It's called. Let me drop it in the general channel.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's candor.co.
Cool. Yes.
Candor.co.
Yeah.
So you said the basic thing here is you sign up for the newsletter
and or you just go onto the website? How do you consume this information?
That's right. So you sign up for the newsletter. Let me like show you, for example, what the latest. So some insights that came through, I think last week or something, right? I'm just going to paste this here. So yeah, there's definitely good amount of stuff that they're. It's not just a hey someone's doing this, but it's also looking at revenue, looking at attrition, looking at leadership turnover, all of that good stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely sign up for these folks. They I think also offer things like comp negotiations or RSU planning and all of that stuff too. That's probably where they make their money or it's a paid service. But yeah, I've seen at least that this has some consumable information there, and I actually most cases when I sign up for a newsletter, it goes into junk after a while. But this is one I constantly like read and trying to figure out what's going on. Anyway, all right. Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, G, I have just a small query. I'm very new to this group, and I think it's a very informative, and you guys are really helpful. So I actually came from I come from the wireless background. I have almost 3 years of development experience in embedded system, and later on I moved to the wireless domain. And since then, I'm more of a kind of requirement guy, and moved then changed to the TPM last 3 years and doing product. I'm in product based company. So I was just I just want to know that how I can approach to crack the FANG company's interview in TPM, because I am currently from the kind of chipset based wireless domain person working in TPM role right now. So would it be great if you can just chime something on, give me some inputs. What should I follow the approach to get there?
Got it. I'm not sure if I'm the best person to answer that. As someone who's in hardware or like networking or devices, if you're on this channel and want to maybe jump in.
Are you in a product company, and is your current role related to devices and hardware?
Yes, it is related to device and hardware, and I think I'm in top two a product based company in mobile domain, mobile industry. So yeah.
Definitely
I
sounded
think
like
that,
he's
that
driving, but yeah.
yeah, I
There
think
was
there are a
this.
few people, yeah, a few people here who come from or who are at least working at maybe Apple and other places in the devices team. I don't know if any of you are online and can maybe provide some perspectives. If you're not on, then maybe what we could do is, post this question again in the general channel and then see if they can respond. But Mario, you may have other inputs as well.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
So there was this really good webinar which we did, like I think 2 months ago. Just ping me on LinkedIn. I can send you a link to it. I don't have it handy right now, but that was
Okay.
a webinar with somebody from Cruise Automation, somebody from Facebook Hardware, and all the people on the panel were all hardware people, hardware TPMs, owning TPM teams.
Next left, then turn right.
And I think that webinar might be of interest to you to see. They were talking about how they hire, how you should come across as a hardware candidate, all of those things, and I think that'll at least give you some kind of insight into what you're looking for. But I don't have a very good answer for you.
Okay. No. Thank you so much. It's fair enough. Yeah. It's for me. It's really. Finding it a little bit difficult how to approach. That's a big thing. Actually, I have been given one interview in the Facebook that was for the network deployment engineer, but I was just I think AG was talking about it's really hard to get the first round, and luckily without any referral I was kind of recruiter has reached me, and then until hiring manager And later on, I don't know, they just told me that, hey, the position which was, it was the, we had already given offer, and that person has accepted, so we are not moving forward. And if any opportunity happens, then we'll reach you again. I don't know whether how much was is true or false, I don't know.
So one thing we can do is, what, since this is a very specific case, why don't you maybe, if you have not already, post your resume in the the review channel, and then also maybe
Sure.
post a couple of job links that would be an ideal fit for you. And then I think we can use the collective wisdom of everyone to give you feedback if the resume is standing out, and maybe others who are working at like other places like Amazon, Google, etc. They can give you feedback on, hey, this might be an opportunity, or this might be a team that you may want to take a look at, right? So let's do that, and see if we can help you out.
Thank you so much,
Of
Ajay.
course.
Thank you so much
Hey,
for
G,
having.
I'll just like to chime in here a little bit. I was trying to unmute my microphone, but I had to change my browser settings and everything to allow the
Go ahead,
privacy
go ahead.
configuration. The like what he's saying over here, right? I had faced a similar thing. So I'm coming from a hardware background as well. Did like 2 3 years of hardware development experience, and then started to take on more responsibilities, managing program end to end, right, from concept to delivery. But there in my organization or in my company right now, there is not a specific title for TPM. So it's the lead engineer taking more responsibility and doing the end-to-end technical management for all the stakeholders. So I was having the same difficulty as to, because my title doesn't say TPM, and how do I convince the recruiters to get me the, like, at least the first step, like you were saying, right, in the initial conversation, first call with the recruiter. So I think how I navigated was Amazon reached out to me asking for the similar role which I was doing, right? They thought I'm like a hardware developer doing all the development for their for the server infrastructure which they were doing, and I was also on the server infrastructure side doing deployments as well. So what I told the recruiter was that I was doing that role, but now I'm managing end-to-end programs. And I explained him the scenario, right? That there is no TPM in my company, and the specific role. And then he said that he will try to get my resume to the recruiter who is recruiting for TPMs. And that's why I got the Amazon interview right now. And I have a loop scheduled interview in the first week of Jan right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's
Nice.
what, like, initial step would be to just, like, if any recruiter reaches out to you, I think just try to interact and tell your story, like where do you want to, which role are you preferring?
Uh, mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
sure,
worthwhile
sure.
even
And I think,
starting like a hardware TPM kind of channel, right? And then figure
Yeah,
out like who else wants to join, and then just chat through all of these things. I
I
think
wouldn't.
you probably go ahead. Go ahead.
I wouldn't even think twice about doing that. I would just go ahead and do it, because you will not believe the number of people who are in hardware and software and who are struggling with this problem right now. I haven't
Yeah.
been able to guide a lot of people, but it's very interesting. We spoke to me like 3 years ago. I would say, try to join Kindle or something like that. But now there's so much of hardware and software opportunity
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's we should just go ahead and do that. Start a separate channel for hardware software TPMs or hardware TPMs, and then we can build some resources around that. I'd also be interested if somebody who's already working on something like that, if you want to like I can bring in like 3 4 people if they're open to it, and we can sit together and we can figure out like resources, structuring, how do you do your resume, all of that for hardware and software TPMs. It's a very big market right now. It's just they are not find the hiring managers are not finding people, and the right people are not applying to the right jobs as well.
So
yeah, and
true.
especially after the launch of the 5G, right? It's really, most of the companies are hiring a lot. I mean, I have so many, I mean, couple of friends who are in the FANG company. They were doing the same type of job what I am doing, but but eventually, I mean, I'm not there. There is something wrong with me for sure, but they are already there. So that's what I'm just struggling. Maybe my profile or resume, whatever I'm presenting to other people, I mean, to the companies, it's a very vague. Maybe I'm using so much jargons in my resume and profile. I'm not sure, but I think really appreciate you guys' help. I think, this is really helpful for everyone who is kind of in the market.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think I could maybe say a little bit something. I'm not really like probably the most qualified since I'm still like a TPM intern kind of. But at least how I like got into that, and I'm also in hardware. I'm even studying mechanical engineering, so it's not even like electrical. It's like even more and more hardware. What helped me was kind of like I basically was doing TPM for the exact thing I was doing as I guess an individual independent like the IC role. Like basically my when I got my first, it was EPM at Apple. It was like the exact same thing. I was just on the TPM side or the EPM side of the like technical role, and that might be like I guess a point of transition. And it was pretty like simple for me because I was already very familiar with like testing. It was hardware testing, so I was doing hardware testing, and then I switched to hardware testing EPM.
Okay, okay. Mhm.
I think one of my questions was very similar to this, like what roles exist in Fang, and how do they relate to non-Fang roles? I was just hoping like, um, and I've never played a TPM role specifically. I've been a product manager and uh, I've been a dev lead and all of that kind of stuff. But um, for me, all of these roles like TPM, SDM, SWE, okay, that makes sense. But how do those translate to non-Fang roles? And if that's a good question for everybody, I know I've asked this question some time ago, and but I thought this kind of segues into that.
Mario, do you want to take that? I think you probably have the best bird's eye view here.
Similar roles. Are you talking about like what are the you asked the first question you asked was what are the types of roles at Fang, right?
Right, and let me give you a little bit of context there.
Yeah.
I don't want to take too much time, but when I actually started hearing about SDMs, TPMs, and all that stuff, and I've been working for about 15 years in the industry, and I've never heard of those roles before. So it was actually very confusing for me to actually figure out what my space or what the best space for me would be to apply because like I said, the roles that I've heard of before are developers, project managers, scrum masters, business analysts, um, product managers, but that's about it, and then directors. But I don't think I've heard the words TPM, SDM uh, until I actually started looking at Fang roles. So um, yeah, and I've worked for PayPal, I worked for CVS. I work for uh, Charles Schwab, I mean, semi-big companies, but never heard of the rules before.
Yeah, so the TPM role is generally you find them where there's a significant emphasis in the technology the team is building, and that's why they generally found more so in tech companies. Within the TPM role itself, you have a lot of different types of TPMs. You have hardware, software TPMs, you have people who are focused on backend. There's front-end TPMs, there's TPMs focused more on the design aspects of things nowadays. There are TPMs who are focused on infrastructure. There's, I think, a whole list. If you ping me later on, I have it in one of my blogs. You can ping me later on, I can send you a link to it. Um, but I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we can take it offline. I was just trying to ask a question that helps the entire group, but for me personally, I'm still struggling to find where my experience would, um, let's say, directly translate to what kind of work actually exists out there.
I
And
see. I think for that, it's more of a personal conversation, right?
Right.
Because you need to somebody needs to sit with you and figure out like what your strengths and weaknesses are, like what do you bring to the table, and then like map that to a role in a tech company. The things you spoke about, right? Like Scrum Master, business analyst, all those roles don't exist, or
Right.
they do exist in a tech company, but it's not a formal role. Most likely a developer is performing the job of a scrum master, right? Or very rarely you have kind of business analyst type of people. So the environment you are in a tech organization itself is kind of very, very different from a CVS who use technology more as an enabling function, not as a differentiating function, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. I think that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
So I have one basic question. I have a hard time in finding out who was speaking. Is that with the username Excel?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I actually wanted to add to that conversation a little bit. Being a person who's come from a very different, diverse background, what I have done to translate my experience into what a TPM or I guess a feature PM or program manager role does is just kind of help bridge the gap and sell my story in a way that makes sense to the person that I'm speaking to. If that, I don't know if that helps you, but I didn't get really held up on did I have this title or not. It was more of could I take my experiences and convince the other person that I may have not done it on a huge scale, but I have those experiences on a smaller scale and I'm capable of functioning at the scale that you need me to function. I think that's like a really important mindset shift in your head. If you believe you can do it and you can take your experiences and translate them for somebody, it projects another level of confidence and helps them believe that you can do it. I don't know if that helps. But
No, it
That
does.
that totally helps. Sorry, Axel, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just agreeing
Yeah,
100%.
I think where Excel's kind of little bit struggling to get there is he right now does not understand the TPM role itself. Once he understands what the role is, he will definitely have a little or a lot of stories, a little or a lot of experience, right? But I think to understand the TPM role, you can definitely read a lot of blogs. That's one way of doing it. The other way is listen to the podcasts and those kind of things. But there's so much of information out there, right? So as you start understanding the role better, I think you can map and see like how much of that experience you already have.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's definitely a struggle, and me personally, I'm not um not not convinced that my experience actually translates to being a TPM or anything for that matter. So I'm still trying to figure out what roles exist and learn as much as possible to see where I would actually be the best fit in. Um, and my whole experience was I got called out of the blue for an SDM role with Amazon, and they said no, we like you, but we want you to apply for TPM roles. And then that's when I found, sorry, just heard myself there. That's when I found this Discord. But the more I learn, obviously, the more I know that I don't know, and yeah, that's where I'm still struggling to figure out what roles exist out there, and then maybe try and say, oh, okay, my experience actually fits there very well. But that's my history. Sorry.
My view, my view of TPM is, again, first of all, TPM has no standard definition across the board. In my company, okay, no two TPM carries same responsibilities and same type of job. Okay, one TPM is heavily on system design. The another TPM heavily on just collaboration. Okay, so there is no standard. As somebody said, if you can articulate your experience that relates to TPM, start with the job description. what does it, Jade, not every job description is very specific to what they're looking for, but that's a starting point. Get a sense of it. And once you get a call, ask the recruiter, okay, what are the main what's called core skills that looking to fill in this position? Okay, again, HR, 80% of the HR I talk to, their answers is not exactly related to the role, but I have some good recruiters. They gave insight about the role. That's another source of information to get what exact TPM does. Another way is in interview. Hey, when the interview, you also interviewed by another TPM. What does your day look like? Where do you spend most of your time? What are the challenges in our role? That gives a sense of is it something for you or not. I was interviewed for TPM in one company, and another company I was applied for TPM role, and they said I'm better fit for SDM. I interviewed for SDM, but of course I didn't get through the interview. So everybody have a wealth of experience. Everybody's seen being managed or managed people. So take that experience, articulate yourself that caters to the role, and that caters to the company, the hiring manager is specifically looking in that role. Hope that helpful.
Yeah, no, that helps.
I think in a lot of ways, a TPM role is a facilitator. Kind of if there are a bunch of spokes, like you're in the middle and you're bringing people together, looking for gaps and helping resolve those gaps. There's so many different varied ways that you can do your job. It just depends on how you function best. So I don't know if you're going to find like this is what if you looked at a software engineering role, you would say, okay, well, the person writes code and maybe they have to gather some requirements or interface with product, but at the end of the day, they deliver software, right? They write code, they probably hopefully test their code, and then they give it to somebody else. It's a much cleaner way to describe what do you do. Or my husband's a pharmacist, right? He fills prescriptions, he handles prescriptions, he talks to doctors, whatever. TPM role, I think, is more nebulous. It's defined by the organization that you're in and what your best strengths are. But you're really a facilitator. I think just today on LinkedIn, I read something about I think servant leadership, or maybe on this channel, somebody asked that. There's somebody some in the interview, somebody asked, how do you influence and bring people together? You do that a lot. You have no real authority. Nobody reports to you generally, right? If you're an individual contributor, TPM, but you're trying to convince the compliance people that your solution's great, or the legal people, or the engineers, or hey, this is what I really want to build, or the product person that I can't do this or I can do this, whatever. You're kind of in the middle of everything. At least that's how I do my job. I did it even at a smaller company the same way.
Yeah, no, that falls slightly in line with what I've heard TPMs do, and the closest analogy to that, or the role that was closest to that, was when Scrum Master, business analyst kind of role. And I know I say that, but um, it's funny for me, right? I mean, I've never actually, and I don't know, I might be unlucky, but I've never actually been in a role where I'm not responsible for the project. And I'm not actually, but you get it. It's I am facilitating, I am doing all that kind of stuff, but still, I think I get where you're coming from. Um, but to Mario's point, I think I should probably read up a little bit more and try to figure out where I'd be the best fit. But I was really trying to see how do these now I understand that they're actually non-tech roles, even though I've been in tech my whole life, which is, again, all of these are super eye-opening for me. So um, I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
So looking at the TPM job profile, I was just wondering why FANG companies they're not preferring consulting. I mean, people coming from the consulting background, because pretty much in consulting companies, the program managers they do the similar kind of stuff apart from people management.
It's because the scale at which um, a person in a consulting organization works to the scale of the product that you're going to be working on in a tech company is different. One, and two, there's a significantly heavy emphasis on understanding and learning the technology in a tech organization. That's not only the stack which you're working on, but all your sister stacks, upstream, downstream stacks as well, which you probably do not really need to do in a consulting company sometimes. So in a consulting company, it's generally project managers. They generally, what they worry about the most is timeline and schedule. A TPM definitely worries about that, but then they have so many other things to worry about. I'm sure that there are other people here who can answer that in a much more articulate way, maybe.
I think probably that's a general notion. I mean, at least I work for a consulting company, and I play. I mean, I wear multiple hats, and understanding technology is one of the need, not pure project management or people management. But if I know this, this is a constraint for FANG companies to take the consulting. I mean, consulting background people. Probably I can articulate. Thanks for pitch. I mean, thanks for that insight, and I would let others express their opinions.
See, from a, and I think I zoned out a little bit. So the question is, why are fan companies not more open to hiring from consulting, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay. So here's a hiring manager perspective, right? There's a lot of effort that goes into hiring somebody, getting them onboarded, making them successful, all of that, right? And it's a heavy lift on everyone's side. Now, so what you ideally want to do is, hire people from organizations that find that learning curve not too steep, and they can come in, hit the ground running as quickly as they possible. Obviously, you need to kind of understand the rhythms of the organization, the domain you're going to be working on, all of that, but at least have a clear sense of how do you build products. And maybe specifically in and the FB and the Google world, how do you do this in a bottoms up culture? How do you be laser focused on goals and metrics and impact and all of those kinds of things? So you ideally want somebody who's been seeped in those kinds of things, and then the learning ideally should be on, okay, here are the tools that we're going to be using, here are my people, here are the stakeholders, here's the domain, and you're off to the races. But if you hire somebody who's not been in that kind of a background, the lift on a hiring manager side is extremely high, right? You got to spend a significant amount of time trying to onboard this individual and try and make them successful. Because in most of these companies, the role of a people manager is very much a supporting kind of a role, and you're assessed on how successful your team is. A big chunk of your performance reviews are based on that. It is also dependent on, and your team's performance also, kind of impacts how your entire team is seen by your cross-functional leaders, like in product and engineering, and therefore is a reflection on you, right? So from a hiring manager standpoint, all of these things are at play. And so what you are trying to always try and do is maximize the ROI that you get from taking somebody through this entire hiring process, and then not maybe taking a risk with the type of profiles that you're hiring, right? So you're always you kind of default or optimize for, okay, this is a person who's worked at Google, this is a person who's worked at Twitter, or a product company that has done these similar type of things, and they can understand and learn quickly, right? And you're trying to maybe optimize for that, as opposed to folks who've spent like maybe 20 years in consulting. They come with maybe a slightly different kind of mindset. So that's where the challenge is, right? And so that's probably why when you have a choice of hundreds of profiles, like why would you hire from a background that you're definitely taking a risk on, and you don't know if it's going to be like successful or not. In the other cases, there's a higher likelihood of this person understanding what's going on and how you build products, and can be successful in a shorter amount of time, right? I'm hoping that makes sense. Sometimes from on the other side, it may not make a whole lot of sense as to, hey, these are things that I'm doing exactly in the consulting world. But you also have to realize that hiring is one part of the job. But so and that in the time that you're partitioning for hiring in a week, you want to look at profiles that you can quickly decide on, and then kind of move from there. So I think that's kind of the mentality that drives a lot of this.
Thank you. I think that gives the insight. But the only thing is probably blanketly, having a blanket opinion about the people coming from consulting companies. I do see there is a misconception because, a lot of people from consulting companies, they work for clients, and those clients could be product based companies. So I think totally leaving out at the screening level, the consulting company, someone coming from 20 years in consulting company, maybe that could be a misconception. But thanks for that
Yeah.
input.
No, absolutely. But that's also a big thing, right? Like when you're in these product companies, you're not necessarily building a product for a client, right? You're not taking direction from a client. You're not getting requirements from a client. You're not getting paid just by that client. So, for example, FB builds product for 2 billion people. So, how does your thinking change? Or Google builds, products for hundreds of billions of advertisers, right? So it's a slightly different like product thinking and system thinking, and more importantly like navigating the org, and how do you get these teams to start thinking about what are the right products to build, how do we quickly pivot, those kinds of things, right? So that I think is where some of the learnings and your practices as a TPM differ, right? And that I think is why some of the baggage that comes with being in concern. But I completely hear you. Like blanket, statements like that don't help. It does not great for the, I guess, the function overall. But like I said, if you also find a good recruiter, you have a great chat with them, you are able to impress, that you're able to like systematically think through these things, and if that individual can go kind of make the case for you, that's probably a good stepping stone. But also there are other companies, like for example Amazon's a great place to get started with. They don't have that discrimination, for lack of a better word, and you can definitely kind of get your foot into the FANG type of companies through them for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I think I have one lined up with Amazon next month. I'll try my luck there, and after that, we'll expand to other. But
Awesome.
thanks for that insights.
Yeah, good luck.
I have to say,
So I think we said, sorry, yeah, we said 2 to 3 p.m. Looks like I actually can hang around for maybe 20 more minutes. If there are other questions, feel free to shoot. But Excel, I also want to make sure we address some of the questions you had already collected, because you did the job of at least collecting them and putting them in one place. So I think we answered a few of them that are maybe slightly tangential, but at least gets to the heart of what you were trying to answer. Is there anything else in that list that is again top of mind that we didn't quite answer?
I'd say the only one that I could see that you didn't touch at least tangentially on was maybe when is one ready to interview, or should we always interview? And I know that somebody else was interested in that question as well. So
Got it, got it. Yeah, and I think maybe we can talk about that as well as the debrief question.
yes, please.
Cool. Is Mario still here?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Mario, maybe you have a good perspective on this.
The first part was, when do you interview? I think if you're already in a fan company, if you're already a TPM, I think it's always good to check out what your competition, what your market rate is. But the thing is that you don't want to willy nilly do it. You want to have. I think there are two ways to think about it. One is, if you just want to know what you're worth in the market, definitely go out and interview, but don't do it like at Amazon and Google and those kind of companies, because sometimes, like I think in Google, you can only interview 3 times. I don't think other companies have that problem. It's definitely better to really prep before you interview. That's my opinion. But if supposing you're already in Facebook or Google, and you want to check out what somebody else would offer you, definitely go and do that. I don't know if I covered, if that. AG, anything else to add? Maybe I'll chime in.
No, I concur, and I kind of agree. I think there are other considerations, right? Like the domain that you're working in, any sort of immigration related constraints you want to think through, all of that. I've typically kept, my status as open to conversations on LinkedIn, right? And which means that if there's a really interesting thing that comes along, at the very least, I have a chat and see what's happening. And so that's one good way to kind of keep yourself like I guess sharp with the interviewing craft, right? I've seen a lot of people who've spent like 15, 20 years at one place, and then they suddenly are making a decision to move, and then very rusty with interviewing skills, and like you can hardly get a word out, and those are things that you want to try and avoid. You should start interviewing when you don't want a job, right? So that when you really want a job, you've really mastered the craft of showing up and representing yourself really well in a 30 or a 45-minute conversation. So that's how I think about it. I mean, I'm supremely happy right now, but I'm saying there's like really interesting things that come up. Might be worthwhile just having a chat and seeing where that goes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and you've changed jobs quite frequently, just like myself. I think, but you can't do it without any preparation. That's what I want to kind of, caveat that statement, right? You've changed jobs like so many times in the last 10 years. Like I think, I don't know, what, 3, 4 times at least, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
and I've changed
First 9 years, yeah, first 9 years at one place, and then maybe 4 places in the next state.
Yeah. So if you look at my career with 15 years, I probably have changed 10 jobs, 10 different employers, right? And I'm